It's All-Ireland football semi-final week and we have two intriguing clashes to look forward to this weekend in Croke Park. On Saturday evening, Kerry will take on Armagh in what is the Orchard County's first semi-final appearance since 2005, while on Sunday, Donegal will take on Galway. Welcome to the Tyrone Football Show. Will Slattery here with you, and I'm delighted to be joined for our All-Ireland semi-final preview by Dick Clerkin and Donnchadh Boyle. But Dick, before we get into this weekend's games, I think it's definitely worth digesting the news that Mickey Harte's gone from Derry after just 1 year. What a season it was, while Derry fans definitely weren't happy with how it all played out from our perspective in terms of kind of talking points and intrigue. It certainly did live up to the hype from when he was first announced late last year, kind of in what was a shock appointment. What are your thoughts now that his time in Derry has come to a close?
Listen, at a personal level, I have huge respect for Mickey Harte, and I think, unfortunately, for him and his legacy, there's no point in saying otherwise. It'll be a really disappointing thing now to have on a CV. Like, I think he probably knew, along with Gavin Devlin, that, listen, they were taking a huge punt going up there. Not only that they left loud, and that probably factored into a lot of people's sort of dissatisfaction at the time. It wasn't as if they were just sort of in limbo and taking the job. They left a team that they committed to go somewhere else, and then obviously the Tyrone Derry thing. So they pushed their chips in very much to take that, and the only outcome was going to be either an All-Ireland final or an All-Ireland win, but they'd moved on from where they'd picked it up, which was a very competitive team at an All-Ireland semi-final. And when they fell short of that, and with everything that had happened, and the speed at which the decision came, it obviously was, whether it was who pushed it, was it players, was it the county board, was it maybe just a general consensus that, you know what, better to cut our losses, fine, make the decision quick, which I think is a good thing to do if the love is gone. But I think just it's very unfortunate now for Mickey that it's not going to be a great thing to have on a CV, and it's disappointing for them personally. But listen, probably the best thing for Derry, if I'm being honest. And now they've a very difficult decision on their hands now in terms of the next appointment. There's a lot of rumours about Rory Gallo, or do they go internally, or where does that go? It's not a good bit of work for Derry GAA either. Let's be honest. That doesn't look good on their CV either. But somebody obviously has taken a very sort of cold look at this up here and sort of say, listen, yes, in many ways we should back our man that we put in. We said, no, the love is gone. We have a window here to win an All-Ireland. If we waste another year, that window might go. So they've been very ruthless, and you have to sort of give them a bit of credit for that. But listen, their next appointment is huge for them.
Donnchadh, is the window open for you still, or was this their chance? I know, obviously, as we just touched on there, Rory Gallagher's departure when they were kind of in the ascendancy looked like it might knock them off course, and Kieran Mina came in. They almost beat Kerry last year, which gave a lot of people in Derry hope that this year could be their year. Now that it's kind of gone disastrously wrong with 4 championship defeats this year, do you think they can come back and win an All-Ireland from where they are at the end of this campaign?
Well, it's only, I did a piece in this morning's paper, it's only 100 days from Derry winning that league final to Mickey Harte leaving the job. And what happened in those 100 days was remarkable. They looked like, at the very least, if not All-Ireland champions in waiting, they were serious contenders after that league final. Looked like they'd struck up a real rivalry with Dublin. And I suppose in winning a national title by beating the All-Ireland champions in Croke Park, it was a statement win. And then here we are now, a little over 100 days later, and we're talking about the fact that, how it's all gone wrong, and do they still have a kick in them? I think the quick answer to that is yes. Might be a small bit of change, might be a small bit of tweaking. But if you look at the Derry underage system, how well they've been doing in Ulster over the last few years, they obviously won the minor All-Ireland. So there's players coming and there's talent coming, but Dick hit the nail on the head there. The next appointment is massive for them. There might be a few of the older players that, if it's not time to move on, maybe there would have to be less asked of them or less expected of them, and the load spread a little bit easier elsewhere. But I don't think the door is shut for them. And if you look at the All-Ireland landscape at the minute, and even the 4 All-Ireland semi-finalists, I think a fully loaded Derry and a fully in-tune Derry would sit easily and comfortably in that company. So no, I think the door is still open, but the next appointment is absolutely massive.
Yeah, I'll be watching that over the next couple of weeks to see who gets brought in. As Dick touched on there, there's a lot of talk that Rory Gallagher might come back in some shape or form, which would obviously be a major talking point heading into next year.
I think as well, and this is from Derry's point of view in terms of understanding or a bit of introspection, what happened? You know, we get bits and rumours and WhatsApps and all that sort of noise and rubbish, but something happened. And was it Mickey Harte? Was it players? Was it a combination? Something happened over that 100 days, Donnchadh, that you could see that I've been away on holidays, only got to watch the Kerry game on a sort of jumpy GA Go channel. You could see that the panel, the belief, the work rates, that there was something lost there from where they had been 100 days before that. So there needs to be a bit of honesty within Derry football, because, you know, Mickey Harte's the fall guy, but was it all on Mickey Harte? I don't know that. We can speculate all we want, but there's no point in coming back sort of saying, so if there was issues internally between players and clubs, that needs to be resolved. But essentially, that's the manager's job, and that's why Mickey had to go if there was a problem. The players can't go. There's only one person in that sort of relationship can go. So he's been the fall guy. But if they don't be honest with what happened to cause the slip, well, then their calibre as an All-Ireland team is severely diminished next year as well, you know.
I think it's worth pointing out too that the last manager was a Tyrone man, Kieran Mina. Like, you know, he's obviously pushed into the job in extraordinary circumstances, but he was a Tyrone man. Before that, it was a Fermanagh man. So, you know, it's not just that, you know, and I think that would be a quite simple, easy narrative to say, well, a Tyrone man in Derry were never going to work. Like, that's just not the case. There's more to it. It'll probably only come out in fullness of time. We've all seen the WhatsApps and, you know,
the Shabalik O'Rourke, they're talking about him. He's arguably a Tyrone man living an Argyll's lifetime. He's from Manor, but he's an Argyll man in many ways. So, but listen, as you say, that was an easy narrative, wasn't it? As I said, we really don't want to shoehorn themselves into just looking from people from certain counties. That's a bit nonsensical as well.
Yeah. It's kind of a funny segue into the semi-final matchups we have, because Derry played these four teams and lost to all four of them over the course of the championship. It shows how kind of strange this new structure is in the new world, that you can play all four semi-finalists and lose to all four. Dick, we'll start with Kerry Armagh. That's the game throwing in first on Saturday evening. A novel pairing. They obviously played a couple of times in the noughties, and they were, you know, hotly contested a contest on those occasions. What's the big talking point for you going into this game? What's the thing you're most interested to see on Saturday?
What way do Armagh choose to go at it? Like we've seen the dreadful game that the Derry Kerry game was, and I think Kerry got a bit of a free pass, and everyone put it on Derry that's the way the game played. But I think we know Kerry, when the game's open and the teams, you know, sort of go at it like we've seen them play against Dublin and other teams, they'll play that way. They won't be the one to set the agenda by dropping men back, but if they have to play against that, they'll play what's in front of them. So if Armagh come out and have a cut and play like they did against, say, Derry, or in the second half against Galway, and really use the energy and intensity and forward impetus that they have a great opportunity. If they go the other way, they play too safe, like we've seen at times, I think they won't get the job done. So I think Armagh is a massive, Jesus, what an opportunity they have, you know, not only to get to an All-Ireland final, but if they win this, there's an All-Ireland title on the line for them, because Dublin's out of the way. I said this a couple of weeks ago. Certain years fall that a county that mightn't have thought they had a hell's chance of winning All-Ireland, somebody takes Dublin out, and next thing they're in the picture. Armagh, and we'll say the same for everybody else, are in that now. They have to go and win it. Like, look at the hurling at the weekend. Cork had to do everything right to beat Limerick, but they had to go at it. They had to be brave. They had to let ball in. They had to be intense, and that's what got over the line. I think I would love to see Armagh do that, because I think they have it in their team. They have it in their ability if they choose to do that. If they go cagey, if they go too conservative, I think, as we've seen against Derry, Kerry will pick that apart. They're good enough now. They'll not get caught like they might have done in the past, or like they've done against, say, Donegal back in 2012. They'll pick that apart. But if Armagh go at them, they have the energy, the physicality, and the scores to win this game. There's no point in saying otherwise.
Yeah, Donegal, what's your perspective on the tactical battle? Because as Dick pointed out there, it's funny to think that someone might watch Kerry Derry and think, oh, the Derry blueprint is something I might want to emulate in this semi-final, but maybe do it with a slightly more offensive edge. But people seem to think that's a possibility of what Kieran McGeeney and his management team might do. Like, what do you think will they be kind of in that more aggressive front foot style that Dick is advocating, or do you think it will be cagey and they will be quite conservative?
I'm probably edging towards the cagey side of it, and they'll look to the blueprint for most top level inter-county football matches is the same now. It's turn the ball over and hit at speed on the break. That's broadly speaking, that's how a lot of teams play, and I think it'll follow that pattern. It's just whether you can get into that momentum and groove and do damage when you do get your turnovers. I think one of the most frustrating things now watching Gaelic football is that when the ball, because the game is played on those terms, on counter-attacking terms, when the ball is turned over, a foul immediately in the second or two afterwards is almost inevitable from the team that have lost the ball. You just see it every time to burn a few seconds, let teams set up defensively. That is, and if you can actually get out of that, get away from that foul and don't give them a chance to commit that foul, that's where you can really do the damage. And I think Armagh have got the energy and the legs and the desire to go and execute that game pretty well. But in a strange way, I think this game will kind of suit them a little bit more than the Roscommon game. Like you can say in Roscommon, they didn't pull up trees and they didn't. I'm not sure how much it suited them to go and win the game against 14 men, to go and take charge of it and go and see the job done. Strange way, I think the terms of engagement that we'll see this weekend will suit them a little bit better. I think they're set up to sort of hang in and hit on the counter and play some good expansive football when they get the chance in the right moments. But so I think it's they have an opportunity here, a real chance. But I agree with Dick, they're going to have to come out of themselves a little bit more to give Kerry proper trouble. Like I did a piece with John McEntee and he was saying, like, I'd love to see them go after it. I think that's sort of the sentiment that anyone who's seen this Armagh team do, because they can play some really good football. If you go back to, I think it was a league match against Dublin, it was 2 years ago, and Rian O'Neill was full forward. I know he won't be there at the weekend, but they kicked some brilliant ball into him and they won that game. And they do have that in their locker, and it has the potential to be a very good game. Equally, I wouldn't be desperately surprised if it wasn't much better than Derry and Kerry.
That's the fear, because we'll not get into the broader conversation about Gaelic football and the championship versus hurling. It needs the Kieran McGeeneys of this world to say, no, I says, we have a choice here, how we go out here. How do we want to be remembered? How do we want to use this occasion? We've 30, 40,000 Armagh people coming down the road. What do we want to send them up the road? There's a way of losing, there's a way of winning. If they went and done a Derry on it, you have to imagine they would regret that for every day, because this opportunity to have this year, there's no guarantee they'll get that again. There's players there, Aidan Falk or a few other players, go for the win, be brave, and I'd love to see them do that. And if they didn't win it, tough and all it would be, it might have to go on bloody another holiday for 2 or 3 weeks after it. But you'd tip their hat to them, because, as I said, any team that goes up to Croke Park and plays brave and plays honest, like Galway did, we'll come to them in a minute, like they did in the second half against Dublin, they deserve what they get. But if they go cagey and they lose by a point or two, I'm sorry, I'll have no pity for them.
And what about Kerry, Donegal, going into the quarter-final against Derry? A big kind of talking point was that they haven't been tested in the championship. They had a very straightforward round-robin group. They won the Munster Championship again. Were they tested against Derry? Well, it was close, I suppose, for an hour, but in terms of actually their footballing ability being pushed, probably didn't ask too much of them. Like, where do you feel they're at? Because Dick mentioned earlier with Dublin being eliminated, while everyone will feel they have a chance, especially in Kerry, they'll be thinking they have a huge opportunity to win another All-Ireland now. But that comes with pressure as well. How do you think they're set?
Yeah, I think all they did in All-Ireland final week or quarter-final weekend was they did what they had to do and no more. And, I think for a lot of teams that would be a worry, but they're kind of bit for this. I think we've seen it so many times over the years with different teams, even different managers, and Jack O'Connor knows his way around these things. They kind of do enough and no more. I don't think what they did against Derry will be enough this weekend. I think Armagh will ask more and different and better questions of them. But I suppose if you were if the glass half full version of Kerry is that they've always been in second or third gear all through the championship and haven't really looked troubled. The other version is how well are some of the big players going? Like, we had a conversation the other day at our GA meeting we have every week, and we're asking the question, if you're picking an all-star team today, right now, would David Clifford be in it? And the consensus is always that if Kerry are going to win, this Kerry team is that Clifford kind of has beneath him in top form and shooting the lights out. So they're sort of betwixt and between. It depends on what way you view it. But like, Jack O'Connor's been here so many times. Like, he just seems to bring his teams to the Boyle at the right moment. And the other thing about Kerry is that, with Dublin gone, Kerry always seem to pick up these sort of All-Irelands where someone else might do the spade work and take out one of the big teams. And next thing, Kerry come along and take out Armagh and somebody in the final, and they're All-Ireland champions again. It's just that they have such a knack for just hanging in there and being around at the right time. And I forget who wrote the piece during the week, but they were saying these are the sort of All-Irelands that Kerry often pick up, and you'd have to agree with that. This is with Dublin out, the road is opened up for everyone, but particularly Kerry, you'd have to say.
I think Jack O'Connor has a 100% record in Ireland semi-finals as well. I was just doing the maths on the top of my head, so I could be wrong, but I think it's 7 out of 7 across 3 terms. So he's attempted to get them right at this weekend of all weekends. Dick, what's your view on Kerry? Like, the point Donnchadh have made about the form of some key players has been a talking point. Usually David Clifford, and I think he still is actually odds on to win Footballer of the Year, but that's almost kind of the default betting position rather than maybe how he's playing.
Yeah, it's probably just forward thinking. They're looking at maybe what's likely to come as opposed to what he's done in terms of winning an All Ireland and probably being their top scorer. Like, I said this a couple of weeks ago. Like, we're probably looking for reasons to mark Kerry down as opposed to just take a bit of a step back, look at the results against the teams, and say, you know what, that's they couldn't have done a whole pile more. Like, what more do we want? Like, David Clifford, like, it's Jesus, Maradona, Pelé combined wouldn't have done a whole pile in that Derry defence, in terms of the lack of space and ball coming in. So it was just the sort of game he had to get through. Now, and I think this is going to be the fear for Armagh. If they do open up, this is like, they're going to, whoever's going to be marking him, he's going to get plenty of abuse and close attention, but he can live with that. All he needs is space. So if he gets space and a hard Croke Park turf, he still shows glimpses that the sharpness is there. But this is his game. This is his game to step up and grab the All Ireland series by the scruff of the neck. Like, there's nobody else in that Kerry team is going to do it and have the input. And we've said this several times, but this is the type of game that he could just sort of take over and he'd sort of illustrate everything about Kerry at the minute. They're sort of just tipping away in third gear, but they have to make that step. If they go into that game and Armagh still in third gear, I reckon they'll get caught because they're not good enough. They're not like maybe Kerry teams of the past that were good enough. They're just so much talent that they just get enough scores out of their whole 15 or 20 players. They have to step it up at this. They're not good enough to win an All Ireland in third gear. And this game at the weekend will be as tough as the All Ireland final because, this Armagh team, they're as good or as competitive as what they could win. So they've got to step it up. And they have to get that from the likes of David and Paddy, who's tipping away, and Sean O'Shea. And they'll know that. Like, they'll be the likes of me telling that. They'll be sort of saying that and getting themselves primed. So it's, a massive opportunity for them because, players like David Clifford, we want to see them in All Ireland finals. We want to see him creating his own legacy, but they've got to go and do it. And it's all set up for a great game. But Jesus, we said that about the Derry game as well. So here's hoping.
Yeah, well, Saturday evening hopefully is good. Sunday afternoon, Donegal looks equally appetising on paper. Galway versus Donegal. It looks very hard to call at this stage, especially if Galway have all their key men fit. Shane Walsh obviously went off against Dublin in the kind of end game, but he appears to be tracking in the right direction, so hopefully he is fit to play. Who do you think is the edge, just first and foremost? Because it does seem to be a very hard game to call.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like, how do you interpret Galway's win over Dublin? Was it Galway finally getting back to the level of form and getting all their key players fit for really the first time maybe since they were in the All-Ireland final? Or was it sort of where you just watched the end of an empire there with Dublin and maybe the last game for a couple of those great players? How do we interpret that result? Which of those two things was it? I thought Galway, having watched the game again, Galway's second half was actually quite remarkable. I thought in real time, I thought they had lost their chance maybe in the third quarter, kicked a couple of wides, maybe a couple short, and you're thinking, oh, Dublin won't let you away with that. But they dominated the whole second half effectively. So that was an extraordinary performance for them. I suppose the challenge for Porrick Joyce now is that to make sure that's not their final. Like, you saw the scenes at the end of the game and it was huge. But they have to go now and do what Cork did against Limerick after beating them. Páirc Uí Chaoimh went and bet them again in in Croke Park at the weekend. Have to find that level again. Donegal, again, like, they've had a great year, and similar to what Dick said about Kerry, like, you can't fault the things they've done. They have been excellent really all year, through Division 2, in through Ulster, and now they're in an Ireland semi-final. So it's very, very, very difficult, like, very difficult one to call, and possibly it's the intriguing game of the weekend out of the two of them for me, because it's hard to know where to plant your flag with both these teams. Like, if Galway were the team that they looked in the second half, then, you know, you could argue that they're favourites for the All-Ireland now, but where exactly do both teams stand? That's the question going into it.
Yeah, Dick, where do you stand on the Galway question? Because, you know, we didn't have, obviously you were on holidays after that game, so we didn't get to chat to you. Like, how impressed were you with Galway's second half performance, and as Donnchadh said, what it says about them going into the semi-finals and potentially beyond?
Massively, like, we were watching it in a bar in Italy, and everyone was a Galway fan at the end of it, for no other reason that the way they played and the way they went at it, and they were brave. And, you know, watching the likes of like Killy McDade and, you know, these boys just kicking points when 9 times out of 10, how often do we see it, that person in that position, he stops, he turns back, he passes to somebody else, he was just going for the win. And I think that's, you know, traditional counties like Galway, that's in their DNA as well, and I think they're going to kick on. Like, they probably feel that it wasn't a case of leaving an All-Ireland behind them against Kerry a few years back, but it was an opportunity there that they know that team is good enough to win an All-Ireland. And the way things went over the last sort of 12, 16 months, they might have felt, oh Jesus, have we screwed this up insofar as we've let this panel slip back, and here they're back again, and the confidence that they must have now after that Dublin win, it has to be through the roof. And, you know, you're probably hearing more in terms of the injury front with Shane Walsh and Comer. Like, if they're not as bad as we would fear, I think they're in a huge position. Like, Killy McDade is, I wouldn't say he's back to his best, but he's trending in the right direction. So, like, there could be a 70-minute performance from him at the weekend as opposed to 35 minutes. And the likes of sort of Maher and these boys have sort of stepped in and added more physicality around the midfield. So listen, if they're fit, hopefully they'll not have, I'm not hopefully, because I'm not plugging for any one team, but I can't but pull for Galway at this stage after the way they played against Dublin. You see, that's what I want from teams. Any team that's willing to go out there and be brave and sort of give us in the Gaelic Championship what we're pining for, and we're watching it from every other sport. You have to back them. So, like, and I do think Galway will see this as a huge opportunity. Like, you can imagine now the pride and the anticipation Porrick Joyce has, thinking that opportunity to win an All-Ireland was probably gone the way they'd fallen off, and now it's very much back in their gift. So I reckon they'll go for it. You know, they'll not be sitting back playing cagey. If anything, it'll be maybe Donegal that'll sort of maybe not too sure they're just as good as the people are saying they are, and then they need to just sort of suss it out a wee bit. So I think Galway will go for it and back themselves after that Dublin game.
Yeah, Donegal, what's your...
It's the best semi-final... Sorry, Will. It's the best, most intriguing, most interesting semi-final lineup we've had in a long, long time.
Yeah.
I think you could sit down and make the case for each of the 4 teams quite easily.
Yeah.
I think if let's say Armagh take out Kerry, they're going to that final with huge momentum. Kerry obviously were in the finals last year. That speaks for themselves. Galway and Donegal can both make the cases for them. But Dick touched on Killy and McDade there. Like, we talk a lot about Comer, Walsh, and rightly so, brilliant players. McDade is, I don't think it's any coincidence that when he started the motor, Galway did too. And you can say the same for the year they got to the All-Ireland final. He was brilliant that year. And I just think he's one of the fellas who is talked about a little bit less, but his importance to that Galway setup, his athleticism. And he can do a bit of everything, you know, to put him midfield, to put him wing back. You know, he's coming on the break. He gets important points. He gets goals. You know, he's a huge player for them too. But the injury thing for Galway is massive. Like, Walsh looked like a hamstring. And like any sort of hamstring, 2 weeks doesn't really do it, does it? Do you know what I mean?
It looked, I was watching it because if you know yourself, so if you pull it, if you get the gunshot, that's it gone. You don't run it, you don't run that out. You're just pulled. It was almost as if something tightened up and he just couldn't sort of, ease it up again anymore. He just had to come off. So I'd say by the fact that he didn't get the jag or the sniper shot that we all know with a hamstring injury, they might be hopeful that there's obviously something there still. Does he have 70 plus minutes? This is a game with good extra time. So how they manage him will be the key thing. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll get the team announcement, and then we'll be waiting eagerly for the kind of the parade walk to actually see who's playing and who's on the bench and who's actually fit. But yeah, it'll go a long way to deciding who ultimately wins. And Donegal, from a Donegal perspective, it's really been one of the stories of the season. Like Jim McGuinness coming back in added a lot of intrigue when it was first announced, but I don't think anyone really thought he'd have the sort of impact he did in his first go around. And just by winning the Ulster Championship, getting them back to this stage already, it's been a major success. And obviously Dick mentioned maybe question marks about whether they are really a top 4 team when it's all said and done, but they're there. Whether they are or not, it doesn't really matter. They've gotten to this stage. As we said, they've a very winnable game this weekend, and then who knows what could happen. It's been some story.
Yeah, it has. And like, if you're writing the script for Jim McGuinness' second coming, this is as far as you would have got. Like, you know, this like straight promotion, beat Armagh in the Division 2 final while missing a lot of players, and then taking out Derry in that game. That sort of like changed the narrative of the summer, really, because, you know, we were talking about Derry after that league final and they're brilliant, and, you know, how far can they go? And then they come along and they pick apart Derry with that game plan. You can talk about Derry maybe shooting themselves in the foot or whatever, but it just, Donegal's momentum that is built from there has been huge. I think, like in a sort of quiet way, what Padder Mogan did in Pro Park the last day was quite extraordinary. He put down a brilliant game. Like, he's, you know, if we're talking about all-stars, I'd say he's well on his way. And just that powerful running from deep and coming on at the right time, and everyone making the right decisions, and just a group of people pulling in the right direction. And actually, McGuinness's name came up with at the Tailteann Cup preview press conference with Conor Laverty, and he just keeps talking. It's a recurring theme to talk about. McGuinness says he's the best communicator you'll ever meet, and he just seems to knock a tune out of those boys. Like, Donegal underperformed versus their talent last year, no doubt about it, but I'm not sure anyone foresaw them in the last 4 of the championship this year either, even with McGuinness's input. So yeah, it's been a brilliant story, and if he could win again, like, Donegal will be on the verge of going mad for the next fortnight. Yeah,
like, Dick, it's funny, you know, as much as we've talked about the tactical battles, like, the GA is a kind of a sport of personalities as well. And I'm trying to think, would Jim McGuinness benefit the most from a win this weekend, just purely because it would put his kind of aura on another level if he can get Donegal to an All-Ireland final? And it looked like they were kind of dead and buried this time last year after another disappointing campaign. It would be such a outrageous achievement to get them back to the final after what they've been kind of going through in terms of their, you know, players not playing for the squad and just their general form line.
Here, in terms of Jim's reputation, it's already enhanced from what it was. Even if they do go out on their shield on Sunday, for that team to go from a sort of forgotten middle-ranked Division 2 team to compete and potentially win, that's stuff of fantasy in terms of modern-day sport, and there's nobody you can put that on but Jimmy McGuinness. Obviously, the players have to buy in and sort of commit and go through the regime in terms of training and discipline and all that, but somebody has to have that sort of leadership and vision and drive and give them belief, and that's singularly coming from McGuinness. I think so. Listen, it's been a phenomenal achievement, and the question I would ask now is that, you know, we know how good Donegal are going from the back and off the front foot. How often this summer have they been tested by a team really going at them, you know, in terms of teams? Like, not that often. And bar the Cork game that none of us really got to see because there was no cameras of it. They could win the smoke, and it was I said it at the time, it was the perfect time for Donegal to lose a game, because any wee chinks, any wee bit of complacency or anything, be it, was able to be ironed out, and they bounced back from it, where other teams just lose at the wrong time and it costs them. So they've bounced back from that, but that equally shows that they're not just as good potentially as we all think they are. When a sort of a mediocre or a decent Cork team, I'm not to be disingenuous, but they sort of went out without a whimper against Louth, sort of cut them apart a wee bit down in Parky Rin. So you'd imagine Pádraig Joyce is scrambling to get whatever grainy video footage was available from that match against Cork to see, well, how did Cork do it? You know, if you run at these boys, are they as good going back as we know they are going forward? You know, that's the big thing now. So Galway, I would imagine Galway will go at them. and sort of say, listen, these boys don't want to be on the back foot. They want us to sit back. That's how Donegal like to play teams, because they're quite as good as any county. Always were traditionally, because we said, try playing football through the foot up on the coast of West Donegal. They're as good a team through the hands as anyone. So I would say Galway will go at them and see how good the likes of Morgan, who's been fantastic, but he's a defender and he should be made defend. And I think that's what the mantra coming out of Galway is: put these boys on the back foot and see how good they are and push them. They are a great team, they're well organised, and he has them playing at the limit of their ability, and that's all any team and manager wants, and it's a huge credit to them. But again, I think it's another step up from what they've had to compete against this summer.
And there was a third game this weekend. Donegal, you touched on Conor Laverty and Down there. They're playing the Tailteann Cup final against Laois. Down would be big favourites. They were favourites, I think, last year to win the tournament as well, and got tripped up by Westmeath. Do you expect them to kind of complete the job this time?
I think so, yeah. I think particularly if you look at last year's game between Down and Laois, which came in the semi-final, and Down scored 8 goals. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen this weekend. That was a freak result. But yeah, I think Down are favourites. They probably should have got the job done last year. I think they faded quite dramatically against Meath in the final. And looking at using Meath as a barometer, that looks like a poorer result for them now, considering how Meath fared this year. I think it's an important final for the competition itself. Year one, Westmeath won it, celebrated it, and did very well in Sam Maguire the following year. Meath won it last year, didn't do particularly well at all in Sam Maguire this year. So if Down do win it, I think it's important for the Tailteann Cup that next season, or whoever wins it, either team, that they put up a good showing, because I think the Tailteann Cup champions have to be seen to deserve and be able for their place in the Sam Maguire series. So I think from that point of view, it's important. I saw Laois against New York earlier this year. Was hairy for them for a while. They went down to 14 men, and maybe with a little bit, there was a goal chance that New York had that was saved, or maybe went wide. But anyway, they butchered a goal chance, and Laois went the other end and scored, and that was kind of the winning and losing of the game in that moment. So, that's where Laois were at one point, and then they took out to there. So it's an interesting game. I don't think you can say that it's certainly Downs, but they have to be favourites on form, considering they came out of Division 3 versus Laois coming out of Division 4. I think that probably gives you a fair reflection of where the two teams are.
Yeah, well, the two semi-finals were very entertaining, so if we can get that kind of calibre of game this weekend, I think people will be pretty happy to see how it plays out. I might get predictions for the two senior semi-finals then, just before you finish up. Dick, I'll go to you first. You can start with Kerry Armagh and then give us your verdict on Donegal Galway. Oh,
I'm going to be boringly traditional on the All-Irelands. I think it's Kerry and Galway, but I wouldn't put 2 cents of my own money on that. As Donnchadh said, there's any one of 4 or 5 permutations could come out of the weekend, but I just think Kerry are sort of, they couldn't have asked for a better trip to a semi-final, and there's all that still probably hanging around Kerry, that sort of nouveau riche look towards Ulster and going back to the noughties when they sort of handed over All Ireland titles. There'll be people saying down there, don't let it happen again. So I think they'll need no motivation, and I think Galway, just because of what they've done for the championship against Dublin, have to give them the nod. So what is that? That's a Kerry Galway, another blue-blooded final, and then Down in the Tailteann Cup. I can't see, to be honest with you, Laois getting close to them. Hopefully it's competitive, but because I would agree with Donnchadh that competition, the last thing it needs is a bit of a dead rubber of a final. So hopefully it's competitive, but can't see how Laois will make it any closer than a 5-6 point game.
Donnchadh?
Yeah, maybe we should have had a pre-podcast meeting, because I would have deliberately said something different if you had to warn me this was coming up, but I really on the three of them. I think the three of them. I think if there's going to be a surprise, I think it's Armagh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you could call Donegal beating Galway a massive surprise, but I think if there's going to be one against the odds, I think it's going to be Armagh. Just think that they've kind of served their time, and we've talked about the penalty shootouts going against them before. Maybe it's time that something falls for them. That team do need a big scalp to be considered proper All-Ireland contenders, if you understand the point I'm making. Like, they've been knocking on the door for a while, but haven't got over the line. I think if they got over the line in a big game, then that just changes the narrative around Armagh immediately. I think if there's going to be one against the head, I think it's Armagh. But otherwise, yeah, probably Kerry, probably Galway. And Down would probably, of the 3 teams the weekend, I think Down would be the safest bet of the whole lot of them. Yeah, that's the way it'll be leaning. But next week we'll say something really controversial on the thing next week, just to change it up.
Well, hopefully,
not to be obvious, but like, Jesus, hopefully they're 2 good games. Like, after the hurling and everyone sort of bouncing and looking, getting back. If it's another snooze fest like the Derry Kerry game, and hopefully it's not like that. That'll be because the final, irrespective, is going to be a great final again. So you have 3 games that could really cap off what otherwise has been a very underwhelming championship, and God knows football needs it. So let's hope, not to sound like a politician, football's the winner, 2 good, and whoever is brave, even though I'm honestly, as a Monaghan man, if either Donegal or Armagh slip into a final, I swear to God, I'll be sick. But you'll tip your hat to them. Absolutely you will.
As Dick said, hopefully we get 2 good games this weekend. We'll be back next Monday with another podcast reviewing the 2 All-Ireland football semi-finals. In the meantime, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or listen on the Irish Independent website. So until next time, thanks so much for listening, and goodbye.